Every crisis is used as an opportunity by the globalist elite. They compound their control. There has never been a time in history where these groups have had so much concentrated power over the markets and the general public. With each passing day, a new bailout is introduced. But unlike in 2008, as the banks were failing, they had a good excuse to pump money into them. Today, they simply use them as a middleman so that they can make a risk-free, government-guaranteed profit from the transaction. Not bad. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to look at what's happening with the scraps that you get. The average individual and the small business, the actual true small business, will get little to nothing. Immediately up front, they gave those people who were eligible $1,200, up to $1,200, and this made them happy for a period of time. It will keep them at bay, keep them inside their homes as the real stuff happens. If you look around and you actually start digging, you're going to find out some information that will upset those who are actually actively looking into it. I made a post on my community or blog section of the channel today, and I found some of the comments in there simply don't get it. The vast majority, of course, they do. They realize this, but some of them have so much faith, and unfortunately, they clearly haven't looked into it. And I'll be very specific here. The small business loans were not going to small businesses. They're not going to necessarily the Goldman Sachs and the JP Morgan, but like I said in the introduction, they're making it through the back end. I showed an image on the screen in that post, and it was not supposed to be a comprehensive list of all of the different companies getting it, but some people tried to pigeonhole, they tried to use it as an excuse, and this is what we get. So many people skimming off the surface of all the details, simply looking at the people on television, at the rallies, on the radio, in the advertisements, wherever it is, believing what they say instead of simply taking a few minutes, clicking the link, and figuring out what's actually happening. So now that I lost about 30% of the people, I want to thank you for sticking around. Let's get into the real deal. We're going to look into some of these today. I wanted to start with this article. Here are the largest public companies taking payroll loans meant for small businesses. Hundreds of millions of dollars of Paycheck Protection Program funds have been claimed by large publicly traded companies. There's one thing that I've mentioned before, and it's simply that the actual small businesses couldn't get loans. They're trying to get the loans, they can't get them. I'm saying it here again because I need to make that very clear. Whether it's inside of this program or not, they're having trouble. The financial system, when it comes to loans right now, is basically locked up. That's why they're having these particular programs, because they're going to be able to lend where a traditional bank might say no at this time. A list of public companies that have reported receiving the PPP loan assistance. The font is probably relatively small for you, but here you can see the company name. It shows you the market cap, how many employees they have, in certain cases thousands of employees, as well as giving you the loan amount. So this just gives you a little sample of what we're seeing. There's so much to it. It's not a simple matter of looking at this list and you're going to see Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan here and it's time to freak out because they're getting a bailout. No, we have to put the pieces together. This article out of the Financial Times is talking about the same situation. An analysis of public filings by the Financial Times shows that recipients of the money come from a variety of industries ranging from radio station operators to biotech groups and coal miners. The use of the fund by multinational restaurant chains including Shake Shack has sparked public anger and a backlash on Capitol Hill. Specifically with Shake Shack, I believe it was $10 million, which they say they'll be returning. I don't know if they officially returned it, but they say they would. One of the recipients, the electric truck startup Nikola Motor, is in the throes of a merger with a public company that values it at $4 billion. Is that what we consider small? I know we're throwing trillions here, trillions there. They're pumped $2 trillion into the markets in a matter of 4 to 5 weeks. I get it. The billion is not really much today, but I really cannot consider this to be a small company. Maybe I'm old school, I don't know, but that's certainly not small. The PPP was fully subscribed last week, with many small entrepreneurs unable to secure funding before the first allocation was taken up. As of this recording, they have already guaranteed more money to come through. We'll talk about that in a second. The Senate on Tuesday approved roughly $484 billion in aid for small businesses and hospitals and more funding for testing, ending in a lengthy battle over the size and the contents of the package. I'm sure when they go through this bill, they're going to find things that have absolutely nothing to do with it. It's probably 500 to 1,000 pages long, and they had about 35 seconds to sign it. We know that more money will be pumped in. They'll do this, and they will completely squander it. That's usually the way it works. Maybe just a few crumbs are allowed to fall down to those who actually do need it. More than 2.9 million homeowners are already in forbearance plans. That represents 5.5% of all mortgages. This population represents $651 billion in unpaid principal and includes 4.9% of all GSE-backed loans and 7.6% of FHA and VA loans. The number has spiked up very dramatically. We're seeing everything, in fact, looking much worse today. This data here is pulling the information from the Mortgage Bankers Association. By investor type, Ginnie Mae-backed mortgages recorded the greatest increase in forbearance over the week, swelling from 5.89 to 8.26%. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that went from 2.4, 4.6. So we can clearly see where our attention needs to be. With over 22 million Americans filing for unemployment over the past month, homeowners are contacting their mortgage servicers seeking relief, leading to a sharp increase in the share of loans in forbearance across all loan types. Forbearance inquiries will likely rise again as we approach May payment due dates. And at this time, you have to think about it. Yes, there are a bunch of people who are not getting their paychecks, but what about a lot of them who believe they're going back to work at some point? It's just a matter of time. A lot of these companies, whether they're small, medium, and even large, are either going to be out of business now. They will get laid off. These people don't realize it, but it's going to happen. Doesn't matter what size of business, there's going to be major changes. The longer this stretches on for, the bigger the impact. Just some more information about what was happening with the bailouts. Companies with thousands of employees passed penalties from government investigations and risks of financial failure even before the issue walloped the economy were among those receiving millions of dollars from a relief fund that Congress created to help small businesses through the crisis. People need to understand how this works. You have big government. Big government loves one thing: to grow bigger. And big government is always going to become bigger because they have this thing called a revolving door. And that basically puts the corporations, these big corporations, into this wonderful circle. And it happens over and over and over again. Nobody really realizes it, but if you look at the major corporations, you tend to see this happen. Former CEO of Goldman Sachs, former treasury, former president of this, former executive of that. Always moving in and out, in and out. And they have some real good fun with each other. This is what it's all about. They use the crisis in order to go stronger and stronger. I found this to be interesting. The oil and gas industry shed nearly 51,000 drilling and refining jobs in March. That's a 9% reduction that is likely to get worse as prices plunge. We have only seen the beginning, and already so many people in this industry have lost their jobs. Think about what's going to happen, as I mentioned every time, not just to those jobs, but also in the periphery. The real estate, the businesses around there, all of them will be impacted to one degree or another. I've been keeping an eye on daily job cuts, and I know these guys are busy right now because everything is just piling up. There's so much information, I can't get to it all. I love to promote this site because it is a resource I use all the time. The layoffs, the bankruptcies, the closures, there's so many on here. If you want to keep track of it, I highly recommend this site. Big investors warn hedge funds on tapping small business aid. Institutional investors in Pennsylvania and Alaska are taking a dim view of hedge funds and other asset managers seeking to tap emergency U.S. government money designed for struggling small businesses. Yeah, right. What a joke. The way that they talk is so much different than the way that they act. We have seen this so many times before. They say they're going to do one thing. They say they're going to protect the saver. They say they're going to introduce new things to make the financial system stronger, and they never do. And anytime they ever put something out there, it's always watered down, just like Dodd-Frank was, just like everything else was. It's either watered down or then repealed after, or they just straight up lie to everybody. Nobody cares. Look at how many promises they've made over the last few years alone. Nothing ever materializes. Wells Fargo, JP Morgan among the banks sued over the Small Business Administration loans. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan, US Bancorp were sued by small businesses that accused the lenders of prioritizing large loans distributed as a part of the rescue package, shutting out the smallest firms that sought the money. Doesn't that sound interesting? Now, we're going to see what actually comes of this, but it's something to mention. The four banks processed applications for the largest loan amounts because they generated the highest fees rather than processing them on a first-come, first-served basis as the government promised. The whole rollout of this thing was terrible. From the very beginning, they made these huge promises. I understand it needed to be done in a short period of time, but how many times have you gone through bailouts before? You don't have some sort of standard operating procedure? They didn't know what the hell they were doing. Just like when they did the TARP bailout, why did they choose that number? There was a quote, I think it was from someone in the Congress, because it sounded like a really big number. That's a quote. It's just ridiculous. Alright, I'm going to end the video there. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you do, you're supporting this channel, so I want to thank you for that. If you want to see any content on Instagram or Twitter, I've got some information every single day for you on there, unique to what you're seeing here. So definitely check it out at The Money GPS. Sales of goods online have increased dramatically, and a lot of people don't know how to sell online, and I think it would be a very good time to learn. If you want to learn for free, I've got the information you need. Check it out at theamazongps.com. Learning about the financial system is not an option, it must be done. There's a lot of bull you-know-what out there, and I don't want you to get confused. I created these two books for my friends and family specifically, and I hope that more people would take an interest in it. I know reading is kind of like an old relic, but regardless, if you want to check them out, the link is in the description. Check it out there. If you want the audiobook, themoneygps.com. I did this video on the housing market and it's actually performed very well, but the reason that you need to watch it, even though it's related to Canada, is that everywhere around the world will experience the same thing. It's just to an extreme in this case. So definitely click on it. I'll see you there.